When Nazis encountered these American soldiers, they made fatal miscalculations. From one Texan mowing down 50 Nazi soldiers, to an 18-man platoon holding off 500 soldiers, to one American charging 2 tanks with a bazooka. These are times the Nazis learned they had picked the wrong fight. Audie Murphy's lone stand at Holtzwihr, France. In the frozen forests of eastern France, where winter had turned the landscape into a hellish battlefield of snow and blood, one young Texan was about to write his name in the annals of military history with bullets and courage that defied all comprehension. Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy of the 3rd Infantry Division faced a massive German counterattack involving infantry and tanks during the Colmar Pocket campaign. The date was January 26, 1945, and what began as another day of brutal winter warfare would become the stuff of legend. Murphy, standing just 5 feet 5 inches and weighing 112 pounds, had already earned numerous awards, including the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, and 2 Bronze Stars for actions in Italy and France. But nothing in his extensive combat experience had prepared him for what was about to unfold near the village of Holtzwihr. His unit, Company B of the 15th Infantry Regiment, had been reduced from its original strength of about 235 men to just 18 enlisted men, and Murphy as the sole remaining officer by January 26. The morning began ominously when, at approximately 2 p.m., 6 German tanks, likely Panthers, and about 250 infantrymen launched a counterattack, splitting into groups to flank Murphy's position. The Germans, camouflaged in white winter suits, advanced under heavy artillery cover with the clear intention of controlling a key road that threatened the entire 3rd Division's flank. As the battle intensified, the American M10 tank destroyers engaged but proved ineffective against the German armor, with one M10 hit directly, setting it ablaze and killing the commander and gunner. Realizing his depleted company couldn't possibly hold against such overwhelming odds, Murphy made the difficult decision to order a retreat to the woods, but instead of withdrawing with his men, he stayed behind, firing his M1 carbine and directing artillery fire that began to inflict heavy casualties on the advancing German infantry. Then came the moment that would define not just Murphy's legacy, but exemplify the very essence of American fighting spirit. With German tanks now abreast of his position and the situation becoming increasingly desperate, Murphy climbed onto the burning M10 tank destroyer, risking explosion from ammunition and fuel, and manned its 50 caliber machine gun. Completely exposed to fire from 3 sides, he began targeting the German infantry with methodical precision. For nearly an hour, this small-statured Texan became a one-man fortress of destruction. Germans approached as close as 10 yards, including a squad creeping up his right flank, but he mowed them down with devastating effectiveness. Despite suffering a leg wound that reopened an old injury, Murphy continued his deadly work, simultaneously directing artillery fire dangerously close to his own position, including smoke shells to guide American P-47 fighter bombers for strafing runs. The tank destroyer was hit twice by 88mm shells, throwing Murphy against the turret, but still he persisted until ammunition ran out and his field phone failed. Only then did this remarkable soldier limp back to his men, organize a counterattack, and lead them forward to reoccupy their positions, steadfastly refusing medical evacuation. The aftermath of Murphy's stand was nothing short of extraordinary. He personally killed or wounded an estimated 50 Germans, with artillery adding more to the casualty count. The German infantry wavered without tank support, and the armored vehicles retreated, their advance completely shattered by one man's refusal to yield. Murphy's actions prevented Company B's encirclement and destruction, allowing the 3rd Division to maintain its offensive and contribute to the Colmar Pocket's eventual reduction by February 9, 1945. Up next, we take a look into 1st Lieutenant Lyle Bouck Jr., commanding an intelligence and reconnaissance platoon from the 99th Infantry Division, held a critical position during the opening of the Battle of the Bulge. Lyle Bouck's defense at Lanzerath, Belgium. On a ridge overlooking the small Belgian village of Lanzerath, 18 American soldiers were about to face one of the most unequal contests in military history. What these men didn't know was that they were standing directly in the path of Hitler's last desperate gamble to turn the tide of World War II. At just 20 years old, turning 21 the day after the battle, Bouck was one of the youngest combat officers in the US Army, known for his maturity, strict discipline, and emphasis on training. His platoon had been ordered to plug the gap between divisions in what was considered a quiet sector of the front, transforming their reconnaissance role into what would become a desperate last stand. The morning of December 16, 1944, began with a massive German artillery barrage involving 1,600 guns that lasted 90 minutes. But the reinforced foxholes that Bouck's men had painstakingly prepared protected them from the tree bursts, and miraculously, there were no initial casualties. As dawn broke, Bouck spotted something that would have chilled the blood of any seasoned commander: a 500-man German column advancing from the east, part of the elite 1st SS Panzer Division spearhead. What followed was a masterclass in small unit tactics and the devastating effectiveness of disciplined defensive fire. The first major assault saw about 100 paratroopers advance across open fields, but the Americans held their fire until close range, then unleashed 50 caliber and BAR fire, mowing down dozens with bodies piling at a barbed wire fence. The Germans retreated, leaving 15 to 20 dead, while American casualties remained minimal. But this was only the beginning of what would become an epic 20-hour standoff. Wave after wave of German attacks crashed against Buch's position like ocean swells against an unyielding cliff. A second assault was repelled with Private Risto Milosevic manning the 50 caliber gun to devastating effect. A third assault brought heavier mortar support and close quarters fighting, where Germans actually reached the foxholes but were driven back with grenades and rifle fire. As the day wore on, the disparity in numbers became increasingly apparent, but Buch's men continued to extract a terrible toll from their attackers. Private William Slape killed a sniper, ammunition began to dwindle, and casualties slowly mounted, but still they held. Each German attack was met with the kind of precise, disciplined fire that could only come from supremely well-trained soldiers fighting for their lives. The final assault came as dusk fell, a 4th battalion-strength attack involving over 500 men that overwhelmed the position through flanking maneuvers and concentrated mortar fire, forcing surrender around 1630 to 1700 after their incredible 20-hour stand. But the cost to the Germans had been catastrophic, approximately 92 German killed and many more wounded, achieved by just 18 American soldiers. The strategic impact of this seemingly small engagement was profound. The delay forced SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Peiper's armored column to wait until December 17th, costing the Germans critical time and fuel that contributed to the ultimate failure of the Ardennes offensive. What was supposed to be a quick breakthrough had become a costly, time-consuming siege that disrupted the entire German timetable for their last major offensive. Up next, we look into the case of Sergeant Francis S. Curry of the 30th Infantry Division, who demonstrated that sometimes one man with courage and determination could stop an entire armored assault. Francis S. Curry's defense at Malmedy, Belgium. The name Malmedy already carried dark significance in December 1944. It was here that SS troops had executed 84 American prisoners of war just 4 days earlier in what became known as the Malmedy Massacre. Now, as German forces launched a desperate assault to capture this strategically vital Belgian town, they were about to encounter an American soldier whose single-handed defense would turn their offensive into a catastrophic defeat. Born on June 29, 1925, in Loch Sheldrake, New York, Curry had been orphaned at age 12 and raised by foster parents on a farm, experiences that forged in him a resilience that would prove crucial in combat. Despite completing officer candidate school at age 18, his superiors deemed him too immature for a commission due to his youth, a decision they would later have cause to regret as they watched this young soldier perform feats that seasoned veterans would find extraordinary. By December 1944, the 19-year-old Curry had already earned his first Purple Heart from frostbite during fighting at Herzogenrath, Germany, and had risen to sergeant, serving as the 3rd platoon leader in Company K, 120th Infantry Regiment. Standing 6 feet 3 inches but weighing only 130 pounds, he was known for his extensive knowledge of weapons and his reliability in the heat of battle, qualities that would be put to the ultimate test in the snowy fields around Malmedy. The German assault on December 21st was part of SS Lieutenant Colonel Otto Skorzeny's Panzer Brigade 150, a special unit using captured American vehicles and English-speaking troops in US uniforms designed to sow confusion and seize critical objectives. Curry's squad of about 8 men was assigned to guard a critical bridge crossing over the Warch River west of town near an abandoned paper mill and the battalion command post. The position included anti-tank guns, tank destroyers, and machine guns, with the road flanked by a 15-foot railway embankment that provided some defensive cover. The German attack commenced around 0400 to 0500 hours with a diversionary assault that was quickly repelled, but the main thrust followed with German infantry and tanks crossing a 1,500-yard valley under cover of darkness. American flares illuminated the advance, revealing the true scale of the threat. Hundreds of German soldiers supported by Panther tanks were advancing directly toward Curry's position. As the battle intensified, 3 German tanks reached the bridge area, overrunning the forward anti-tank gun, with the lead Panther crossing the bridge and turning toward a stone house holding wounded Americans. It was at this critical moment that Curry made his decision to act, regardless of the personal cost. From his foxhole by the bridge, Curry engaged the tank commander with his bar, later recalling, "The German commander is standing up in the tank, looking down at me. I opened up on him." But this was only the beginning of what would become an incredible one-man battle against overwhelming odds. Curry located a bazooka, crossed under intense fire to grab rockets, and with a companion, fired a shot that jammed the tank's turret, forcing it to retreat. The young sergeant's actions became increasingly audacious as the battle progressed. He killed or wounded 3 Germans in a doorway with his bar, advanced to within 50 yards of an enemy-held house, and fired a rocket rocket that collapsed half a wall. But perhaps most remarkably, when he spotted 5 pinned down Americans from the anti-tank platoon, 2 of them wounded, Curry grabbed anti-tank grenades and dashed under heavy fire, lobbing them at 3 tanks and driving their crews inside, disabling their positions. His resourcefulness seemed endless. He manned a .50 caliber machine gun on a half-track after its crew was killed, then moved to another position, providing covering fire that allowed the 5 trapped Americans to escape. Throughout this entire engagement, lasting several hours, Curry moved from weapon to weapon, position to position, using every tool of war available to him with deadly effectiveness. The impact of Curry's single-handed defense was profound and immediate. His actions prevented the Germans from crossing the bridge and supported the Allied hold on Malmedy, turning what could have been a breakthrough for the enemy into a devastating defeat. The bridge remained in American hands, the German assault was broken, and Curry had demonstrated that individual courage and determination could indeed alter the course of a battle. In the rugged forested terrain of the Vosges Mountains, where autumn mist clung to steep slopes and every ridge could conceal an enemy ambush, a technical sergeant from Tennessee was about to demonstrate that American leadership and determination could overcome the most desperate odds. Charles H. Coolidge's Repulse, east of Belmont-sur-Boutant, France. Charles H. Coolidge of the 36th Infantry Division led a heavy machine gun section against repeated German attacks in hilly terrain over 4 grueling days. What began as a routine advance would become an epic test of will that would earn him the Medal of Honor and showcase the finest traditions of American combat leadership. Born on August 4, 1921, in Signal Mountain, Tennessee, Coolidge had been drafted in June 1942 and assigned to Company M, 3rd Battalion, 141st Infantry Regiment. By October 1944, this unassuming young man had already proven himself in some of the most savage fighting of the war: the Salerno landings, Anzio, San Pietro, the Rapido River crossing, and Monte Cassino, earning a Silver Star and Bronze Star along the way. His company had suffered devastating losses throughout these campaigns, often reduced to a mere fraction of its authorized strength. The setting for Coolidge's heroic stand was Hill 623 east of Belmont-sur-Boutant, a strategic position in the Vosges Mountains that was part of the Allied effort to break through the German Gothic line. The terrain was unforgiving: dense woods, steep slopes, and October weather that brought rain, cold, and mud, hampering movement and logistics. Coolidge's 12-man squad, augmented by a platoon from Company K and totaling about 27 men, was ordered to clear and hold Hill 623, where a tank-wide path provided a vulnerable approach that the Germans could exploit. The 4-day battle began on October 24th, when Coolidge and Sergeant George Ferguson conducted a reconnaissance mission and encountered a German infantry company of over 100 men in the woods. In a desperate attempt to avoid a firefight, Coolidge had Ferguson call for surrender in German, a bluff that might have worked if not for a German rifleman who aimed his weapon at Ferguson. Coolidge's quick reflexes saved his comrade's life, but the shot that wounded the enemy soldier also initiated what would become a brutal, sustained engagement. When Ferguson was wounded in the arm and evacuated, Coolidge assumed command of the position, walking the line to calm his inexperienced men and direct their fire. Many of his soldiers were green replacements who had never seen combat, making Coolidge's leadership even more crucial as wave after wave of German attacks crashed against their positions. The enemy used the wooded terrain expertly, launching assaults from multiple directions while artillery and small arms fire intensified around the American positions. The climax of the battle came on October 27th, when German forces launched their most determined attack, involving infantry supported by 2 tanks advancing up the hillside path. The area was raked by machine gun and tank fire as Coolidge's men found themselves in a desperate fight for survival. Demonstrating the kind of personal courage that distinguishes true leaders, Coolidge grabbed a bazooka and advanced to within 25 yards of the enemy armor. But when the weapon failed due to a missing battery, he didn't retreat. Instead, he gathered grenades and continued his lone assault. Crawling forward under intense fire, Coolidge threw over 20 grenades at the German infantry sheltering behind the tanks, inflicting heavy casualties on soldiers who thought they were safely protected by their armor. When a tank commander demanded surrender, Coolidge's response exemplified the defiant spirit of American fighting men. "Sorry, Mac, you'll have to come and get me." The tank fired 5 rounds point blank at his position, but Coolidge dodged each shot through quick thinking and sheer determination. Recognizing that his position was about to be overrun and his men's lives were at stake, Coolidge ordered an orderly withdrawal, ensuring that the heavy machine guns were evacuated and personally covering the retreat as the last man to leave. His 4-day defense had resulted in 26 Germans killed and over 60 wounded, preventing a flank collapse that could have had catastrophic consequences for American forces in the region. Up next, we get to see how First Lieutenant Vernon J. Baker of the 375th Infantry Regiment demonstrated that courage and heroism recognize no color barriers, leading an assault on a heavily fortified German stronghold that would earn him recognition as one of the finest combat leaders of the war. Vernon J. Baker's assault near Viareggio, Italy. Born on December 17, 1919, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Baker had been orphaned at age 4 and raised by his paternal grandparents, learning hunting and survival skills that would prove invaluable in combat. After enlisting in June 1941 and attending officer candidate school, he commissioned as a second lieutenant and joined the 371st Infantry Regiment, one of the units in the only African-American infantry division to see combat in the European theater. By April 1945, Baker had returned to duty after being wounded in a night patrol in October 1944, requiring 2 months of hospitalization in Pisa. He had earned respect as a skilled leader, despite racial tensions with some white officers, and his men knew they could depend on him in the most desperate circumstances. The target for their assault was Castle Aginolfi, a medieval fortress on high ground east of the coastal highway near Viareggio, a position that had repelled previous Allied attacks and served as a crucial German artillery observation post. At 0500 on April 5th, Baker's weapons platoon, supported by 3 rifle platoons totaling about 25 men, advanced from a line 2 miles away toward the heavily defended castle. 70% of his men were replacements with no combat experience, making Baker's leadership even more crucial as they moved through dense woods toward an enemy position bristling with machine guns, mortars, and determined defenders from the German 148th Infantry Division. Within 2 hours, Baker's group had reached a draw 250 yards from Castle Aginolfi, and it was here that his individual heroism began to manifest. While reconnoitering for a machine gun position, Baker spotted 2 cylindrical objects in a slit on a hill edge, German observers who had no idea death was crawling toward them. He crept up close and fired his M1 carbine through the opening, killing both men instantly. This was only the beginning of what would become an extraordinary display of individual combat prowess. Baker ambushed a camouflaged machine gun nest, killing its 2 crew members who were eating breakfast, completely unaware of the American officer's approach. When he encountered a German soldier who threw a dud grenade at him, Baker shot the man twice as he attempted to flee, demonstrating the kind of quick reflexes and marksmanship that separated elite soldiers from ordinary infantry. The most remarkable phase of Baker's assault came when he descended alone into a draw and blasted a dugout entrance with a grenade, killing 1 soldier who emerged, then tossing another grenade inside and entering with his submachine gun blazing, killing 2 more Germans in close quarters combat. This kind of individual assault on fortified positions required not only exceptional courage but also tactical skill and split-second decision-making under the most intense pressure. As German machine gun and mortar fire erupted in response to Baker's assault, his small force suffered devastating casualties. 2/3 of his 25 men were killed or wounded. When Captain Runyon, overcome by fear, retreated claiming to seek reinforcements, Baker found himself in command of only 8 men with dwindling ammunition, facing a German counterattack that included disguised medic units that were actually combatants. Recognizing that his position was untenable, but determined to save his remaining men, Baker ordered a withdrawal in 2 groups, volunteering to cover the walking wounded first and then assist the seriously wounded during the second retreat. Even during this fighting withdrawal, he continued to engage the enemy, destroying 2 bypassed machine gun nests with grenades, demonstrating that his primary concern was always the safety and welfare of his soldiers. Baker's personal tally for the 12-hour engagement was 9 enemy dead, 3 machine guns destroyed, an observation post eliminated, and a dugout neutralized. On April 6th, he volunteered to lead the battalion's night advance through minefields and heavy fire, securing the objective and contributing to the Gothic Line's breach, proving that his heroism was not a single moment of courage, but a sustained display of leadership under fire. In the flat, exposed terrain surrounding the Italian town of Cisterna di Littoria, where German machine gun nests commanded deadly fields of fire across ground that offered virtually no cover, Sylvester Antelak of the 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, would charge 200 yards across open terrain under intense fire in an act of heroism that would break through Nazi defensive lines and help pave the way to Rome. Sylvester Antelak's charge near Cisterna di Littoria, Italy. Born on September 10, 1916, in Fairpoint or St. Clairsville, Ohio, to Polish immigrant parents, Antelak had enlisted in the U.S. Army on July 14, 1941, and by 1944 had risen to the rank of Sergeant in Company B, 1st Battalion. His unit was part of the Can-Do 3rd Infantry Division, which had already seen heavy fighting in North Africa, Sicily, and the grueling Italian campaign. By May 1944, these battle-hardened soldiers were participating in Operation Diadem, the Allied offensive designed to break out out from the Anzio beachhead where they had been stalled since January. The Battle of Cisterna was part of the broader effort to breach the German Gustav Line, which had created a cordon of steel around the Allied beachhead. For months, both sides had endured brutal attrition warfare in the marshy, flat terrain that offered little natural protection from enemy fire. The German defenders, including troops from the Hermann Göring Division, had created interlocking fields of fire from well-fortified machine gun positions that could cut down any advancing force with devastating effectiveness. On May 24, 1944, Antolak's company encountered one of these formidable defensive positions, a machine gun nest approximately 200 yards away across completely open ground. The terrain was a killing field, where any movement drew immediate and accurate fire from multiple positions. Most soldiers would have sought alternative routes, called for artillery support, or waited for tank assistance. But Sergeant Antolak made a different choice, one that would cost him his life, but save countless others. Positioned 30 yards ahead of his squad, Antolak charged directly into the teeth of intense enemy fire from machine guns, machine pistols, and rifles. What happened next defied all military logic and human endurance. He was struck by bullets 3 times, each impact knocking him to the ground, but each time he rose and continued his impossible advance. His right arm was shattered by German fire, one shoulder was deeply gashed, but still he pressed forward, wedging his submachine gun under his uninjured left arm. Within 15 yards of the enemy strongpoint, this wounded warrior opened fire at point-blank range, killing 2 Germans and forcing the remaining 10 to surrender. In that single charge, Antolak had eliminated 20 Germans, 12 captured and 2 killed, and neutralized a machine gun position that had been holding up his entire company's advance. But his heroism was far from over. Refusing medical aid despite his severe wounds, Antolak reorganized his squad and led them toward another enemy strongpoint 100 yards away. He advanced nearly 3/4 of the distance under a renewed hail of bullets before enemy fire finally claimed his life. But his supreme sacrifice had achieved its purpose. His actions inspired his squad to overrun the remaining German positions, clearing the path for his company's advance and contributing directly to the eventual capture of Cisterna and the liberation of Rome. In the dense, fog-shrouded forests of the Vosges Mountains, where autumn had painted the landscape in shades of death and winter's approach brought bone-chilling cold, Staff Sergeant Lucien Adams of the 30th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, was about to earn the Medal of Honor in a 10-minute firefight that would reopen critical supply lines and allow the Allied advance to continue. Lucien Adams' clearance near Saint-Dié, France. Born on October 26, 1922 in Port Arthur, Texas, Adams was one of 12 children in a working-class Mexican-American family, with 8 of his 9 brothers also serving in World War II. Before enlisting, he had dropped out of high school to support his family, working at Consolidated Iron Works building landing craft and at a shipyard. After being drafted in February 1943, he had already proven himself in combat during the Battle of Anzio, earning a Bronze Star for heroism and a Purple Heart after being wounded. The engagement occurred during the Vosges Mountains campaign, part of the broader Allied push to liberate France and breach the German defensive lines protecting the homeland. Heavy rains, rugged terrain, and fortified German positions from the 19th Army and elite units like the Hermann Göring Division had created a nightmarish combat environment where casualties mounted daily and progress was measured in yards rather than miles. On October 28, 1944, just 2 days after Adams' 22nd birthday, his company was advancing through the Mortagne forest near Saint-Dié-des-Vosges when they encountered a devastating obstacle. Heavy rains and German resistance had severed supply lines to 2 forward assault companies of the 3rd Battalion, completely isolating them and bringing the entire advance to a halt. The Germans had established at least 3 machine gun nests supported by infantry, grenade launchers, and possibly armor, creating an impenetrable kill zone in the forested terrain. Adams' company advanced into the Mortagne forest but was immediately pinned down by concentrated machine gun fire that killed 3 soldiers and wounded 6 others within the first 10 yards. The mathematical reality was stark. At this rate of casualties, the entire company would be wiped out before they could advance even 50 yards, much less reach their isolated comrades who were desperately awaiting resupply and reinforcement. It was then that Staff Sergeant Lucien Adams made a decision that would forever mark him as one of the most courageous soldiers in American military history. Armed with a borrowed Browning automatic rifle and hand grenades, Adams charged alone into the German positions, Adams dodging from tree to tree under intense fire, while rifle grenades exploded overhead, showering him with deadly debris. The first machine gun nest fell when Adams closed to within 10 yards and killed the gunner with a perfectly thrown hand grenade. A nearby German soldier hurled grenades at the advancing American from just 10 yards away, but Adams' marksmanship with the bar cut him down before the enemy could complete his throw. The second machine gun nest was neutralized when Adams charged through what witnesses described as a vortex of enemy fire, killing the gunner at 15 yards with another grenade and forcing 2 supporting infantrymen to surrender. But Adams was far from finished with his one-man assault on the German positions. Despite the enemy focusing all their automatic weapons on him, he advanced deeper into the woods, killing 5 more enemies in individual combat. When the final machine gun opened fire at 20 yards, Adams eliminated the gunner with a burst from his BAR, completing a 10-minute rampage that had killed 9 Germans, neutralized 3 machine guns, and captured 2 prisoners. The tactical and strategic impact of Adams' individual heroism was immediate and profound. His actions allowed his company to reopen the supply lines, reunite the isolated units with the battalion, and resume the advance that would eventually contribute to breaking through to the Rhine River. What had seemed like an impossible obstacle, 3 interconnected machine gun positions in dense forest terrain, had been eliminated by one man with a BAR and an unlimited supply of courage. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.